It's a little bit after 5 o'clock. I am going to call the Lee County Charter Review Commission meeting of Tuesday, March 26, 2024 to order. Let's all, where's the flag?
Over to your right.
Let's all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's all be seated. We have 9 members, so we have a quorum, and we're going to take public comment. I have 3 cards in front of me. Stephen, you're first.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I appreciate the work that you're doing. Mine is just real short. I am asking that you would advance as currently written the voluntary annexation amendment, and I have 3 reasons why. It seems that existing districts that obviously are providing services to property owners, and then the property owner requests that they be annexed, that they sort of leave behind a bit of a mess in that, the revenue is lost and the capital costs that have already been incurred remain in place. And it just seems that it's important to have any of the special districts that have incurred capital costs, it seems important to have them at the table to be able to work through this issue so that it's, it's a reasonable back and forth as opposed to the voluntary annexation just happening and ultimately the people that have spent money on capital end up, having incurred that cost but have lost members of their tax base. I think it's unfair for taxpayers too, because in the end, as people are voluntarily decide to be annexed, you obviously have a capital structure and a loss of revenue that ends up being footed by the people who remain taxpayers. And so you think just about the capital costs, and I'm sure you all understand this, but capital costs incurred and all of a sudden we have a smaller tax base and you just basically take the capital cost divided by the people that are left, and which means our premiums or our rates are going to end up going up. So I just feel like it's not good for the taxpayer, and from my standpoint, it seems, this is a strong word, crazy, that we would not have all the parties sitting at the table that are involved in this. This is not, you could understand if it was a corporation. Corporations lose customers all the time. It's a competitive thing, but as counties and cities and municipalities set up their capital structure to serve a base, the fact that that base goes away isn't really their fault necessarily, and ultimately they need to be there to be able to work through the revenue lost and also the capital that they have expended in order to provide those services on an ongoing basis. So again, I would just ask you to continue to push forward the amendment as it is written.
Thank you, sir. Next, Carolyn Moore.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
One of the things I want to do is comment about moving the meeting around the county. I think it's been beneficial for citizens who want to participate to have an opportunity to participate without the inconvenience of the traffic that I experienced last week. And one item off topic that since I've missed several meetings being out of town, is that I think the county commission meetings need to be held in the evening, because it says to the citizens, we don't want you to be hurt. They are working. They've got family members.
Come closer.
Oh, okay. So meetings do need to be made available to citizens. But on the topic of annexation, and whether it's voluntary or whatever reason they would like, a group would like to come into the district, I think that the county needs to decide whether they have met the needs of the current population, whether everybody's needs are met before you take on another burden. And by that, since I've been in Lee County, I've heard nothing more about Alva, the water situation, the sewage, and the roads. So those needs are not being met at this time, from what I read in the news. And before this county takes on any other projects, they need to look at their citizens that are already supposed to be receiving services and are being taxed for those services. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn. Mike?
How about that traffic?
That's why they're building flying cars, by the way.
I can't wait. I can't wait. My name's Mikes Malkakis. I've spoken in front of the commission a few times already. I'm the general manager of the Greater Pine Island Water Association, or GIPWA, as we like to call it. I'm here tonight on behalf of our association and over 16,000 customers. I would like to thank the members of the Charter Review Commission for their time spent working on the commission. I'd also like to thank the members of the Lee County Attorney's Office and other county staff who have supported the work of the commission. Thank you all for your service. And this is how we keep democracy working. As previously stated, I've had the opportunity to speak in front of your commission before, albeit in 5-minute increments. Each time I tried to make a different point. If you guys remember, I had the Tiger King point. That's what one of the commissioners, or one of the commission called it. But tonight I'd like to try and string those 5-minute segments together into some sort of narrative that makes a little bit more sense. Before I do that, I'd like to give you some information about GIPWA. We're one of the longest operating not-for-profit water utilities in Lee County. We've been in continuous operation for 57 years. We've been providing clean, safe drinking water to Pine Island and the surrounding communities since 1967. And that was done through a long-standing franchise agreement with Lee County. However, annexations have encroached on our service area for many years now and threatened the association's ability to continue to provide high-quality service to the current and future customers. So to effectively communicate my thoughts on annexation, I need to first discuss our legal system. So I'm gonna digress for a second, but I promise I'll bring it back. So our legal system is based on English common law. Our laws organically grow to address issues in the world, and then they build upon themselves to maintain continuity with the past. And I believe this is the best way, the best system that we can have in this imperfect world that we live in. However, the world continually changes, and from time to time, old laws that served us well must be amended or changed. And I believe this is the case now, and that is why I urge you to advance this amendment to the vote of the electorate. Currently, voluntary annexation laws allow property owners to join a local municipality. So you might ask yourself, why would a property owner want to join a municipality? And to answer that question, imagine that you lived at the turn of the century and you didn't have running water and you didn't have fire protection. But there was a municipality close to you that'd be willing to let you into it and then provide those services, and you might be willing to pay some taxes and get those services. So that's a historical framework for the voluntary annexation laws as we have them now. The current real world situation is much different. So nowadays, no one lives without running water or fire departments or sewers or libraries, etc. And the burden of providing a majority of these services by default fell to Lee County. So Lee County property appraiser Matthew Caldwell, in his presentation to this commission on May 9th, stated that Lee County's current population totals exceed those of the states of Delaware, South Dakota, North Dakota, Alaska, and Vermont. So our county has more people in it than 5 states. Lee County has done an excellent job managing this growth. I'm not saying they did it perfectly, but it was done. And I imagine that there were thousands of man hours and millions of dollars spent planning, designing, then building the roads, the water pipes, the libraries, and the other services we enjoy today. In unincorporated Lee County, a vast majority of the people already have services. When they, why then might a property owner want to voluntarily annex? Especially considering they will pay more taxes for the same services they're already receiving. The answer to that question is they wouldn't. No one is willing to pay more taxes for the same services. I think we can understand this as a basic human truth. No one's going to pay more taxes. In that case, there should be no problem. There shouldn't be a need for this amendment, and we shouldn't have to be here talking about it. Yet, these annexations still occur, and they mostly occur on large tracts of land. Now, what would explain that phenomenon? I believe it's developers who want to get out of following the Lee County Land Development Code. I'm not against development. I'm against all of a sudden changing the rules. The inhabitants of unincorporated Lee County have been putting their time and effort into developing the Land Development Code, especially Chapter 33, which contains the articles pertaining to the planning communities, of which both Greater Pine Island and Matlacha have, along with Captiva, San Carlos Island, and other communities. If developers can get rid of the Lee County government, they can get rid of the Lee County Land Development Code.
Let's wrap it up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a time requirement. Oh, okay, I was unaware of that. So I just ask that you move forward with the amendment as written to a vote of the electorate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Ellen?
Good afternoon. I've watched the videos of you, so it's nice to see you in front. And I'm glad that there's attendance here this evening, unlike your previous meeting in Estero when nobody came. But many of the people, or some of the people behind me, are from Pine Island, and I apologize for being a few minutes late, but sometimes it takes a while to get off the island. My name is Ellen Ballard, and I live in Bokeelia, and am served by the Greater Pine Island Water Association and the Matlacha Pine Island Fire Department. Pine Islanders do not want to be annexed by Cape Coral in any shape or way. I support the Lee County Charter Review Commission advancement of the voluntary annexation amendment to a vote of the electorate, and I encourage the commission to unanimously support this proposal.
Thank you. Melvin?
I am Robert Ballard. I'm a native Pine Islander. Going back, my mother was born in Cape Costa, so we have a long life on Pine Island. And we have love our independence. I like to keep it that way. I've seen what happens when these new corporation or incorporated cities try to take over. I grew up where Cape Coral is now and seen what happens there. And not happy with what I've seen because I grew up where the Publix is on Birstall Road. I don't like the encroachment. Like to keep it where we can. And I would like to encourage you to adopt this charter resolutions that's going on here to try to give the utilities and stuff that are having something at stake here, if an annex happens, to make sure that they're protected if that happens and they don't lose all the stuff they have invested at this time with serving the people that are in unincorporated Lee County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I don't have any more cards, but anybody else in the audience want to make comments? No? Okay. Then I'll just call for adjournment.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Eric?
thank you. If I might, could I ask the gentleman from the Pine Island Water Association to come up with just a quick couple of questions? One of the things, by the way, that I keep hearing from people is relating to this, and in general, that Cape Coral is constantly seeking to annex Pine Island. And there is nothing, I used to be mayor there a long time ago, and I keep in touch with them now, and there's no desire to take over Pine Island, nor could we take over Pine Island legally. So I don't think anyone in Bokeelia or St. James or the center or anywhere else on Pine Island has to worry about that. So that's a good thing. What I wanted to ask you, sir, is, and I don't know if you can quantify this or not, I'm looking for a number, basically. Past 10 years, how many customers, what percentage of customers have you lost as a result of annexations, if any?
I'd say in the last 10 years, it's hard to know because we lost all of the Sandoval community. So when they came in for plans review, the whole development wasn't designed. But if I had to guess right now, maybe we lost on the order of, I don't know, 2,000 customers.
So did you serve the Sandoval community as built, or did you lose that land prior to the development of Sandoval?
So it was in our franchise area.
Right.
And we were set to serve it. And we built a booster pump station at the cost of $2 million to serve it. And then before they started construction, it was annexed into the city of Cape Coral.
So and you had mentioned that before about the $2 million. That was going to be my question too, was before you built that, did you make any attempt to discuss your plans with either the owners of the Sandoval land or with the city of Cape Coral?
Well, the Sandoval community developers came to us because we owned the legal franchise, and we were in discussions with them about providing them water and making sure that we had capacity to provide them water. So yeah, we had conversations with them.
So you built that pump, and as a result of that, but again, you never actually provided water to Sandoval with that pump, or did you?
No, we haven't because
Okay.
they went to the city.
Okay, and so just so I understand the end result of that, it was constructed, your association spent $2 million and never was able to use it in any kind of meaningful way. Did you disassemble it and move it, or what happened?
No, it's still there, and we use it to serve Saltwood Farms.
So it is serving
and Cape Royal.
others
It
in
is,
that
but
area.
it's serving them at minimum flows.
Okay.
So-
So I guess that was the other question too, was whether the association, because I've never been to one of your meetings, whether there was a discussion about serving the enclaves. I'm sure some people here know that Sandoval and others are enclaves inside the city of Cape Coral that didn't incorporate in by their choice. Has there been discussions in the past and currently about when you're expanding, that you're expanding to an area that is in the middle of the city of Cape Coral, whether that could be a potential problem?
Well, so we weren't expanding. So our water association was incorporated before the city was incorporated. And so the franchise that was given to us by Lee County was predefined before the city existed. Now, the city boundaries, when they were incorporated, didn't come close to our franchise area. Over time, the city limits have been expanding into our franchise area.
Right. So I guess my main question is when you're going to spend capital on serving your franchise area, is there any discussion or is there any analysis of whether that area may not be your area for much longer, or is that not considered as part of the calculation?
Well, we, like most utilities in Southwest Florida, we do a 10-year CIP, so that's our window. We're looking 10 years out. We look at population projections that come out through University of Florida, Bieber Institute. So yeah, we're always looking out into the future. Historically, we thought of our franchise area as sort of like legally ours, and so we didn't really anticipate or think through scenarios, contingency scenarios where people would come in and take the franchise area away, but now we do.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
The Sandoval thing, did that happen before you were there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so you got a 10-year plan of what you have to kind of base your building capacities on.
Yes, sir, yeah.
So when Sandoval come in and they annexed it, was there a conversation with you guys about that? Or did they?
Not up front. Afterwards, I mean, you could understand that the utility was a little bit upset, and there was many conversations. No legal action was taken until later, a few years later, Walmart came in, and the same thing happened. And then there was, we did sue the city, and then from that we have precedent that when there is an annexation, we are allowed to service that area until our term is up. So when our franchise term is up, then it goes over to the city. But for Sandoval, it went to the city right at the annexation. It was kind of like a gray area.
So you didn't have a chance to go in and say, whoa, wait a minute, let's talk about it.
Not really. Yeah, that's an accurate way of putting it, yes.
I'd like to shed some light on this conversation. First of all, I think that what we're talking about here is a real problem. It's not an imaginary problem. And to say that Cape Coral has no plans to do any annexation, I don't know where that statement came from, because let's look at the facts.
in the Pine Island plan went all the way to the corner of Burnscore Road and Pine Island Road. The southwest corner was in the Pine Island planning community. That area was annexed. That was really a big future area of growth that would have been, that was in our franchise area to be served by not only the water company, but by our fire department as well. And then we have all of these out parcels. There are numerous out parcels that are in the county that are on each side of Pine Island Road. And it goes all the way to Bubba's. That's being served by our water company. And at one time, we were serving all of Unit 58 in Cape Coral and a portion of Unit 59. So we lost all these service areas, and we had an agreement with Cape Coral, and if they would not annex these lands, they made a deal with our fire department unless we sit down beforehand and did what this proposal that we're talking about today would do. Is everybody sit at the table and work out an equitable plan. So everybody is a win-win. That has not happened in the past. It has not happened with Lee County and the city of Fort Myers. All of this stuff that was annexed by the city of Fort Myers out by Colonial and Daniels and Tree Line, all of that property in there that was annexed by the city without any services available for it. And then they come to the county and say, will you sell us water so we can do this multifamily development there? So these issues are all over the county. It's not just limited to Pine Island and Cape Coral. And so I think we have to put something in place because what's in place is not working. And as a result, the ratepayers, the users of the current system, are going to have to pay for all of these increased capital costs from losing about 2,000 paying customers. So that's why we're talking about this. It's not to stop any growth, it's to accommodate growth in an orderly manner. And that's what we're talking about doing because all of these other parcels as you go west from Chiquita are going to be annexed into the city. It's just a matter of time.
Brian? Sir, I may be recalling this incorrectly, but I thought that at one of our recent meetings, the representatives of the city of Cape Coral City had been talking with you or maybe with the fire department or someone about an interlocal agreement or on the way to drafting and maybe even entering into one to try to address some of the concerns that you spoken of earlier. Is that the case, or did I hear that wrong?
No, you heard that correctly, but that's not the case. So they have done an interlocal agreement with the fire district, and they have not done one with us. They broached the topic with us, but we haven't started formal conversations with them.
Do you plan on carrying forward conversations with the city in that regard?
I think we have to. You know, I've been reticent. You know, I think the legality is where it is. I don't know why I should have to sign an interlocal agreement with the city to hand over our franchise area when that was given to us through Lee County. And I don't think people really want to annex into the city. You know, I apologize earlier. I'm sidetracking here, but I thought I had more than 5 minutes to speak earlier, so I was kind of laying out the, you know, all the ideas. I didn't know I was constrained to 5 minutes, but I was going to kind of address that. You know, I don't think it's necessarily people, individual property owners, and I don't think it's a property rights thing. I think it's a development thing, and developers want to kind of get out of having to, you know, be beholden to the land development code. So I don't know if I answered your question exactly.
Well, kind of. I understand your point about the LDC and all that. The point, I guess, that I did want to ask is, you're not really sure if you want to talk to the city anymore or not. I would just prefer you, regardless of what we do, to do that because it never hurts to talk to people because you might learn something that is beneficial to you and or be able to change their opinion with something that you don't think is beneficial to you. So I would encourage you to do that. I think that if the city did that, enter into some agreement with the fire department, that's admirable. I think that's really a good thing. I would encourage you to at least talk to them.
Thank you.
Regardless of what we do.
I
had one question because you made a comment about you don't feel like you have to give up a service area that was provided to you by the county before the city existed. I think all utilities probably benefit from scale because there's some sharing of those costs. But at what point does it make sense for the Greater Pine Island Water District to exist? Or if the county came along and said, we have the ability to provide these resources to the residents of Pine Island at a lower cost, is that something that at that point you would say we would be willing to fold and surrender, or are you confident that you should be providing those services regardless of cost?
Well, I think the money's already been put into the system, so the services are there. So do I think it makes sense for Lee County to bring service all the way out there and sink in more costs when the service is already there? No. Do I think it makes sense for the city of Cape Coral to bring more infrastructure and service water there and our infrastructure is already there? No. I don't think it lowers the cost for anyone. I think it increases the cost for everybody. So I think, and let me speak about it on the whole county, for the whole county. The service providers that are there, they're there. That all the money's been put in, so it makes sense to just keep going with the people who are already there. Now, if they're not doing a good job, that's one thing. But if they are doing a good job, for example, our fire district are doing a good job, they should be allowed to keep servicing their area. It shouldn't be a, you're in the city, you're in the county. It should be, well, services are being provided. Now, there can be annexation or no annexation, but it'd be nice if the service providers were allowed to sit at the table to talk through what happens with the services when there is an annexation. And that's all I'm asking for. It's just that the amendment, as you guys have it written, allows the special districts and the utility franchise holders to be part of the discussion.
I'd like to ask if we could, we have an opportunity, here's an impacted representative for a utility company that's been impacted by the present policy and who has put together information I think that would be valuable to this committee. And I would like to ask if we could suspend the rules on the 5 minutes and allow this gentleman to make a presentation to explain what the impacts really are to existing utilities.
That's a motion, I second.
Further discussion from anybody? And I like the idea, but what about continuing it until the next meeting when we have a full audience?
And this is the fullest audience we've had, I think.
Yeah.
This is a crowd.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments? So any other comments? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We got some more time, Mike.
Thank you. That's very gracious. I appreciate it, and I do value your time. Where I was talking about the land development code and developers. So I don't think, I know we're all concerned about property rights, and I'm concerned about property rights too. You should be allowed to do what you want with your property. And the amendment as written doesn't keep you from doing anything with your property. It just brings certain stakeholders to the table if they have services in that area, and I think that's a good thing. So really, what's going on with these annexations is the developers are trying to skirt the land development code. And democracy has worked in Lee County, Chapter 33 of the Land Development Code has the planning communities, and these communities have, put in time and they've done work and they've written the rules that they want to live by, and I think we should honor that. The thing is, the developers can get rid of the LDC by getting rid of Lee County, and you do that by annexing into a municipality, whether it's the city of Fort Myers or Cape Coral. So, it's damaging to the service providers. Now, we've talked a little bit about, interlocal agreements have been made with the fire district, and we don't, the city did say they were working on one with us. That was incorrect at that time when they said that. So one of the other points I had made previously was, if you want to look at something, you got to look at it from different angles, right? It's like having 5 senses. If you can touch it, feel it, and smell it, it probably exists. So there are rules in the Florida statutes about de-annexation. So you can voluntarily de-annex out of a municipality. Now, if you do that, you have to have the municipality's approval. So what I'm kind of saying is it's a double standard, so if you're in a municipality and you want to de-annex, you need their approval, probably because they gave you services and they want to talk about what happens with those services. So it's the same thing with the county, getting back to when I was talking about English common law. So common law is built on the fact that people didn't have services and they were annexing to get services. Well, now most people in unincorporated Lake County have services. So when they're annexing, they're not getting services, they already have services. So it's somewhat of a double standard, and I just want you guys to, like I said before, forward the amendment as written, and it gives the stakeholders an opportunity to sit at the table. And that's pretty much it. I thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit more. I apologize, I didn't know it was a 5-minute restriction.
I just want to clarify one thing you mentioned a second ago. I did not state that the city they had talked to you. I asked whether they had talked to you. I couldn't remember if it was you or the fire department. You confirmed it was the fire department, but you were not sure you were talking to. Don't go away saying
No.
the city said.
They did say it.
Sure.
You remembered correctly. They did say it at not the last full meeting, not the last public meeting. Yeah.
Just want to make sure we clarify that.
Yes.
Any other questions from the board? Any comments from the board?
I have a comment.
Sir?
Did you have anything else?
I'm
I
good,
don't have
thank
any
you.
questions for
Thank
the
you,
gentleman
Mike.
presenter,
Thank
but 3 things. One thing that he brought up about the de-annexation, the double standard. It does sound like a double standard. I think we've talked about that once in here before, and that is an issue for the legislature to tackle and not for us, in my opinion. The second one was his comment, and this is something that I'm trying to get at, his reticence to discuss things with the city. Now, I also am reluctant to talk to Cape Coral, too. It's an unpleasant experience to deal with cities, and sometimes with counties as well. But that, and whether it's, we could point a finger and say whose fault it is, but the city, I believe, has attempted to open a dialogue, at least recently, on these kinds of things, and I feel like we always have been, because there is an element of fairness that we all, and respect we have. As you know, we've talked about shared services, I forget what the word is now, when we have a big fire and everyone goes in, what's it called? Somebody? Anybody? Thank you, mutual aid. Gosh, I didn't get enough sleep last night. So there's a lot of cooperation already. But that reluctance to even broach the subject with the governing body you're trying to govern, it concerns me, and I don't think he's the only person that feels that way. I think it's happening on a larger scale, too. And that always gets me back to that $2 million issue. I know he wasn't there for it, so I don't mean to sound critical, but if you're going to make a serious capital spending on infrastructure for whether it's your city or your water system or the fire district, and you don't consider whether this land that is probably going to be developed into 1,000 homes that's within the boundaries of the city, just hasn't been annexed yet, might be annexed, there needs to be a discussion and a deal done. And again, maybe this is the lawyer having me. I'd make sure that whether if Sandoval pulled out of that or the city did something, that there would be something in writing before you made that large expenditure. So again, I know it's not always this way, but I think that we all have an obligation to our ratepayers or to our taxpayers to think about those things and to plan accordingly. Again, and we have lawyers in I don't know what lawyers that Pine Island Water has, but every other entity has lawyers either inside or out that should be working on these things. And so I can go through 1,000 things the city didn't do well with lawyers, and we paid out the notice for it, and it's terrible, but it's no one else's fault either. So I just wanted to point those things out, that I think part of the reason the situation that we've seen is not because of faulty rules, but just a lack of communication and a lack of planning. And that's my comment.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Any more comments from anybody?
I move we adjourn.
Yeah, second.
All right, before we adjourn, the next meeting, which is scheduled for April 9th, is a full meeting downtown. It's a meeting where we're going to discuss the proposal and vote on it. So, and it's the last meeting. So Andrea's going to be done with us.
Well, she'll bring pizza or some sort of food then to celebrate the end of this, right?
Yeah.
I had to force you all to take it last time.
But anyway, April 9th, final meeting, major discussion on this, and we're going to vote on it. So if everybody could please put it on the calendar
arrive on time. We're meeting where we used to meet downtown. And I have nothing further. Does anybody else have anything further? We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thanks.